Good day, friends. My name is Host Eric. I'm the host of Talking with Finnish People, and there are a couple of subjects that I want to talk about briefly in this video that I'm going to talk about now. The first of these topics is a shorter kind of a topic, I guess. So, Melting Zero asked in the chat of the stream called Fun Gus is with us. I put actually because I'm a rebel like that. But anyway, he said, or they said, I don't know what they are, but where is Eric looking at while talking? Like, who is he talking at, sitting alone in a room? I thought this was interesting because it links to some things I've been thinking regarding the show Alone, which I've been watching with Rachel. And when I'm talking to the camera like this, I'm looking at myself. So, like right now, I'm looking at exactly what you're seeing. And I'm currently watching it in OBS itself as I'm recording it. When there's a live stream going on, under normal circumstances, I'm spending a decent amount of time looking at the chat and or trying not to look at the chat. Because if I see something in the chat that I'm engaging with, it's kind of a matter of self-discipline for me to not look at the chat until I'm done discussing that thing, because I will be right before the salient point in a given matter and then get distracted by something else in the chat, like, ooh, squirrel, right? So normally, it's a bit of a dance with myself, going back and forth between getting new ideas from the chat and talking about them, getting new ideas from the chat and talking about them. But in that particular stream, I was in what you might say I was in a state of flow, which means I was just talking ideas out, and in some sense, I wasn't really looking anywhere. I was looking inside my head at these ideas that were amusing me primarily, and to the extent that I was looking anywhere, I would be looking at the screen, a picture of me, or just looking through stuff. Like right now, I'm looking down here at the leg of this desk, not because I'm actually looking at it in a sense of trying to glean visual information about it, but just it's where my eyes are as my brain is elsewhere. But the other thing is, when I'm talking into the camera, or talking into the mic, and I know I'm recording, or for me, it's the same thing as talking to somebody else. It's just, I don't find out in the process of doing so what the other person thinks or feels about it. I find out later when people respond to it, what, if anything, they think or feel about it. And that works fine for me because FE third is talking about a metaphysical function that means it works on a status update kind of level, right? And unlike your tool function, which is sort of constantly doing status updates, if it's TI, like what just happened, the status updates done by the FE component are much more like quality assurance. Comes in and checks and okay, yeah, everything's going fine here, or let's see how we did on that last effort of extroverting the self. Was it liked or disliked, and why? So somebody left me a comment. It might have actually been Melting Zero, now that I think about it, but yesterday that that critiqued me on FE grounds in a video about Frank James, saying what a FE perception management fiasco my insistence that I'm right and everybody else is wrong and stuff like that is. And, when I just barely glanced at the comment, I was just like, I don't even read that one. Because it's like, I don't disagree with the person. And, it hurts, I don't like that reality. But that is reality, and you might say, well, why don't you change it, Eric? Well, because I like alternative realities less, basically. Or I'm not that disciplined is another explanation, I suppose. So, the second thing I want to talk about, which is why I changed the pictures, is these two instances of what I would call determining your type fetishists. So there's a category of a person that one might say fetishizes the process of determining one's type, and that's to the exclusion of knowing one's type. Usually, it happens with people who have NI as an instrumental value. So, if you are 8th slot NI, then your particular experience, as you experience it, is what matters. And you're going to describe it however you want. Because, after all, it can't be boxed in a universal thing. It is fundamentally your particular experience. So, if you're trying to understand the self, particular first, well, I have this particular thing happening to me, or reality, just self-description, and I'm going to use that particular thing to determine my universal, then that's a process that might be endlessly repeatable and fun. I'm going to find this unique set of particular facts about me, describe them in a particular way, and say, this is consistent with type yeah. And of course, if you find that gratifying, if there's some sort of like community engagement in that, like in other words, you're getting more, you're continuing to get community engagement on the level of what type are you, rather than on the level of, well, let's talk about whatever now that we've determined your type, So there are these, you might call them TDFs, right? Type determining fetishists. It's not necessarily the case if you've got NI instrumental. I think it's most likely the case if you've got NI instrumental and FE absolute. But regardless, I can't help you guys, okay? Because you're not what I consider to be the correct result, namely figuring out your type, you consider to be another successful example of a process, getting somebody to tell you what type you are. But you want to repeat that process, and so you've got to disrupt that typing by pulling up examples of particular things that seem to run afoul of a general understanding of that type. Of course, it's really all about your attentional manners, and the best that we can ever do with attentional manners, this is the third point, so I better change to the third picture. The best we can ever do with attentional manners is to find expressions of being that link very closely to attentional manners in ways that aren't gameable. So that's the best we can do. It is true that the TI deductive reasoning questions don't represent the totality of introverted thinking as a cognitive function. Is introverted thinking deductive reasoning? Yes. But are there other elements of that go along with that more completely describe how it works as a function in terms of manifesting an individual through time? Yeah, there's more to it, right? So depending on whether it goes along with your dominant or whether it goes along with your tool, that's to say whether it's odd or even in the slots, okay? Introverted thinking is going to play out as, in addition to a process of deliberation and the frequency with which you approach, the frequency and ease with which you approach matters via that evaluatory mechanism of a disinterested calculus, trying to be fair, treating words as though they mean things, and evaluating circumstances on the meaning of the words said rather than in terms of other factors. That's an intentional process called TI, but depending on how that attentional habit is, how it plays out in your configuration is going to change dramatically how a third party experiences your manifestations of that kind of attention. So we might say, well, ENFJs are NI tool. Surely they're going to be very good at embracing the truth about their type. Well, NI tool is ultimately instrumental, not absolute. Now, it's still an operational value, so you expect others in the world to be receptive to and somewhat capable of speaking that language, right? But you're still trying to speak the language. You're still assuming everybody's speaking that language to do things rather than for its own sake. So ENFJs are susceptible to this FTT, yeah, TDF, this type determination fetish, okay? TDF. ENFJs are susceptible to it, though not all of them engage in it, right? ESFPs are susceptible to it, though not all of them engage in it. And ISTJs, ISFJs are susceptible to it, though not all of them engage in it. INFPs, INTPs, susceptible to it, though not all of them engage in it. The point is, with cognitive functions, we can't approach the matter as though the truth were instrumental to anything. Because if we do that, we're already missing the core lesson of cognitive functions, which is the self represents one of a finite, determinate set of configurations of attentional manner that an individual may manifest in their journey of upholding the prime directive, namely in seeing their expectations and their realities align. So, to engage in meaningful discourse or meaningful community inclusion on the matter of cognitive functions, one can tweak out on having one's type determined. And there are such individuals in the community. It's nice to be able to learn how to sort of spot them and say, okay, I'm not giving this any more of my attention. Because you will always be able to come up with a set of particularist reasons why it's time to disrupt what is so and replace it with something else that is not so, but you can make the argument, right? And if so, then you get to play that game again of let's determine the type. That's not what typology is for. Okay, so can we just leave the instrumental NI at the door when we enter the typology community if possible? Those of you who intentionally don't align like that may be like, no, which I get, but remember, ultimately what cognitive functions teaches us is that it's a very TE lesson. The right tool for the right job. It's like yesterday I was making my TE bridge lowering gondola thing with camera and everything, which worked, but I have a new problem, which I don't like the fact that it spins around when I'm lowering it down from the bridge. It'll be for another video. Anyway, the point is, I was trying to cut these struts essentially that are pieces of they're little metal bars that I'm taking from a tomato plant circle thing that tomato plants grow up in the middle of, and I was trying to cut off these little metal legs from it, and I was using my little wire snippers to try to do it, and I was like struggling, and I was bending it, and finally I said, Eric, remember, the right tool for the right job, okay? And I went in the garage and I grabbed my dad's bolt cutters and I freaking snip, no problem instantly, right? Here I am struggling because Eric's trying to figure out his half-assed way around things when he should be using good TE and saying, okay, let's be efficient here. Just go get the tool you actually need for this. Well, in this instance, cognitive functions is like that. I get it. If you naturally are a play around guy like me, that you're not going to have good TE off the bat, that it's going to take you some learning lessons. Just like yesterday with the string at the thing. First I lose the thing the string comes on because of some very stupid reason. And you'll get a video about this. But then I have to use something else to wrap it up. First I wrap it around my hand, like this, with a ring on it. It starts to hurt. And I can't use this hand now because it's wrapped around with string. So then, because it's starting to hurt, I have to unravel it. And then the second thing I do is I wrap it around my arm instead. And I realize there's still a problem with it being attached to me. So it's not until the third time I go through this unravel process that I wrap it around something not me. And usually it's how TE works for me. And in fact, sometimes I'm guilty of exactly the sort of same thing of instrumentality, in fact, usually, that I'm complaining about here with cognitive functions. Of course, Mumbler gives me these instructions on how to make a sky lantern kind of buoyancy lifting of stuff device. And I just go, okay, well, I don't want to do that anymore now. Of course I could Google it. That's not any fun. Of course I could actually learn how to do this thing. I'm trying to make shit up. Okay. So I get that I'm guilty of the same thing, but the difference is what I'm guilty of just affects my play because TE is on a fundamental level particularist because it's about some sort of goal or desired outcome, which is always an interested matter. Whereas this display of TDF it does have the negative consequence of leading some people to think these matters aren't really determinate. You're choosing to make them non-determinate, and it's your prerogative. But when you make a bunch of public statements about that, you're not doing anybody any good because I'm not trying to tell everybody that you shouldn't use good TE. You should just play around like me and figure out by experiencing the failures that's what failure looks like. I agree that's dumb. So even though I do it, I don't tell you you should do it, or And I'm giving you no reason at any point to conclude that it's a good way to do things, or that that in fact my choice to not do things the right way is suggestive that maybe the right way isn't the right way. But I think there's something kind of implicit into that in TDF. So just try to, if possible, TDF people, try to remember what I'm saying here is the salient issue, which is I I know that it's possible sometimes when I'm examining your actual territory, it looks just like this part in Colorado. And I get confused sometimes, and I give people a Colorado map and say, you're Colorado. When actually, it's a very similar looking place in Utah. Sometimes that happens, right? But don't, just because that occasionally happens, don't mistake typology for a process in which you get to explore different states, okay? You definitely are in one state and definitely not in any other state. I might give you the wrong map one time, and I might tell you, because you keep blowing a bunch of fog over your state, I can't exactly tell you which state it is, but you are still nevertheless definitely in a state, and there's one and only one correct state map for you to get here. And if you're here because you like buying state maps, that's not the point of this store. Okay? So anyway, that's my video. Have a good day.